Hello everyone, here psst.one. Today I'm really glad to introduce you, Markus Heckmann. He is the technical director of Derivative and also is the artist behind the visuals back in 2009 for Avvanoto, Byton and Raster Noton, alongside many other projects. But he will talk about it, so enjoy! Normal question for me to start is how did you start with visuals?
It's a long time ago. During university, I used to work in Berlin over the summer and winter holidays. And I worked at a company here where also a guy called Sven Garreit worked. Back then he was in a visual team, Monitor Automatique. And he showed me or gave me an introduction in all the director lingo programming, or doing visuals in the director lingo. And that really sparked my interest because it was already kind of a generative approach and not just video playback. And from that point, I studied director lingo and experimented a little bit. The clubs were full with TV screens and visuals everywhere, so it was perfect time to start with that. Yeah. And shortly after, already 2002, went to Toronto for the first time to work with Derivative, or not work with, I did an internship for, I don't know, 10 months or something like that. And that gave me a good start, which then continued with me switching universities. I went to Ilmenau first and then switched to Weimar, where I met Stefan Kraus, MX10, and learned a lot from him. And then returned shortly after for a full-time position in Toronto. So that's kind of the start of it, yeah.
A huge part of your artistic work, I would like to say, is focused on visualize music, or the sound in general. Why? What do fascinate you about it?
When looking at music visualizations, it's almost as if you can hear music differently, like you add a sense on top of your hearing. And that's probably the biggest fascination. I can hear or I can see details in music, and a lot of the energy that comes through music can be transported via the visuals as well. That's probably the biggest reason. Yeah, it's another sense. That's probably a big influence of that is probably back then Raster Noton and Carsten Nicolai and Olaf Bender. Carsten I visited in 2007, I believe, here. And then he invited me to a residency down to Florida. And there I had the chance to kind of play around, essentially, a little bit under his and Olaf's guidance. And that triggered a lot of the working directly with audio visualizations.
Connect directly with this, with Alvanoto. You produced this live in 2010. A lot of people don't know that, or I'm wrong.
It was earlier, 2008. That was a nice connection again through this, through these couple of visits. Him and Olaf Bender and they approached me basically saying, why not make the visuals for an upcoming show for Transmediale here? And I believe that was 2008 already. And for Carsten, he looked at the interface of TouchDesigner and said, that's exactly what I want as my visuals. And at the time we hadn't released that version yet, so TouchDesigner was kind of in a hiatus, where we were developing a new version, completely new version from what the public had before. And he was the first one who got to use it in a way, and then he used it in this pretty specific way where he just uses the UI. Most of the work is very much directed by Karsten, and then, I mean, you interpret direction and create content to his liking, basically. But yeah, I know it's, and from there we did the universe after, which was an adoption of the Unitext, and then the three installations that came out of this.
How was to work with him?
In a way, it felt I could understand him very well, which is nice. I don't know how else to express that, but he could basically explain a concept, and I could convert that concept into a visual element. And that was really nice to be able to do it so easily. Like often you have ideas that are expressed, but they're not easy to create. And this really felt natural on all the projects that I worked with him. I really felt that I could understand him very easily, and I even felt that the work is not very stressful with him. It's very, you just produce and it works, and you do iterations and changes, but it never felt stressful.
Nice. Another performance that you kind of travel a lot, that is with Matt Thibodeau, that is called Reclusion. Yeah. What is the aim of this performance?
It's a very almost an intimate. So he made the music, and it literally, from the name, like reclusion, like a very maybe I should say wintry exercise where you make a very personal piece of music. It's an ambient piece, and that lends itself to this idea that you actually play an instrument. Something that I took away from Stefan Kraus quite a bit when they played as MX10. They had the MX10 Panasonic mixer. And if you stop performing the mixer because of all the feedback loops, you would end up with a whiteout. So you have constantly, you have to perform that instrument, which is different from perhaps a more traditional approach where you have loops or preset sequences. You actually have to play it. And I always liked that idea, that you have to be active on it. And while I had previously little synths or patches that worked in a similar way, this was the first performance where I could work in that way, where I actually had an instrument that needed to be performed to deliver content. Yeah.
TouchDesigner, part of your life. It is a huge part of your life now. You live since, you started, as you told me, in 2002. You are the technical director, or at least is the name. I guess you do more and a lot of stuff. How is to work there, and what is about your job inside the team?
So Derivative is a fairly small company. We are 5 programmers, and then I would say 3 people that are active in production, or we don't develop the software, but we develop with the software, and in such then we do basically product development as well. So you see needs, you might prototype them, and then you try to include features or get features included. And as you say, everybody in the company has 1,000 hats on. We have our titles, but the titles mean not much necessarily. And surely, like Ben, my colleague, who is the product manager here, tries to keep things together and tries to give direction, tries to keep control over releases and things like that. So we do have these parts, but we all do many things. And so for me, a part is tool development inside TouchDesigner. I do help customers deliver their projects if they have special needs. And and the education is a big part of our life as well. Yeah. Go around, try to start communities so that they can be self-supportive.
What is the beauty to do workshop around now that it's years that you do?
Well, you gain over the time, you gain quite a bit of insight, but it's worth nothing if you cannot share with people and get other people, deliver concepts to other people, and then have them pick those up and change them and come up with their own things. So it's a very rewarding thing to do, to teach workshops, because all of these people, or a lot of these people, go out and just start creating their own ideas. So that's a beautiful thing for me. You give them a little step ladder to find a start, and from there they just keep going. So yeah, that's probably selfishly the main part why workshops are so great. You just can dump knowledge and see what comes out of it.
The next part in TouchDesigner that you are happy about?
We are currently, it is very exciting that we currently have another experimental build out, which was quite a big dump of new features. And when developing the software, we often have a lot of technical changes. And with this release especially, it's really nice to see that there were some new creative techniques added. So it's small steps that are often fairly large steps for us. So for example, the inclusion of the rigid body physics. I'm excited to see what people come up with that feature, like what people start creating. Since it's a new field, it should result in interesting new output. So this is currently, I'm very happy that we just a couple of weeks or a month ago or something like that released that. And now trying to polish it up, and then hopefully soon enough have an official build where this really gets out into the production environment. And the other part is literally seeing the community grow. It's been from coming here in 2008 for Transmediale, where we went around and kind of had to explain who we are and what we do and what's this weird interface. And now going to festivals where we can see lots of installations or visuals being done with our software. And often we don't even know about it, which is also something, it's just out in the wild.